Well, welcome everybody. The weather might be cold, but we can rug up a bit, and we've got some seriously hot property. Now, by the way, you might think that's a bit odd, having 9 stitches on your head. Tell you what, it wasn't from a client. It wasn't real estate. I should stick to real estate. It was actually falling off a ladder. Anyway, we move on. So today's SA's finest is a fantastic property in Melbourne. And if you reckon the market's cool or whatever is being reported, this is a seriously hot property. So the suburb inside of this week is Glenunga. So we'll head over there. And of course, we have our new Going, Gone segment, which people had great feedback last week, which was our first. And then we are live and we're interactive. So let's hear from you and we'll answer your questions at the end of the show. Well, the carbon tax has been dominating the papers, so bring back the real estate stories. I'm so over the carbon tax. And anyway, I'm not a big fan of it, I've got to tell you. Today we have RP Data's Cameron Kusher is going to join us. That'll be a really good segment, so stay tuned for that. But now, the inside story on the affordable rentals in Adelaide.
Should South Australians be renting instead of buying? Based on market research, renting is currently the cheaper option, as Adelaide is the most affordable capital city for renting houses. According to RP Data's senior research analyst Cameron Kusher, people tend to be staying in the rental market instead of jumping into home ownership, especially in the South Australian capital where rental prices are still so low. Adelaide's median house rental price stands at $330 a week and $290 for units. Compare this to the most expensive rents in Darwin and Sydney, and it's not hard to see why many locals are diving into the rental market.
It's getting more expensive to buy a home, so a lot less people are able to buy and a lot more people are looking to rent.
There's just probably a bit more demand for rental properties at the moment because there's less people that are able to buy properties.
Maybe the younger generations are more interested in renting. It's easier to get into your own home initially without a big outlay.
Rental growth has stalled since 2008 because of stimulus from low interest rates and the first homeowners grant boost. But it's expected we'll see a hike in rents later this year, as rental properties will be in high demand because of tight capital city vacancy rates and a drop in the number of first home buyers.
Great story from our roving reporter Elise. Actually, it's a big subject because, as she said, rental, according to the national stats, we'll have a big discussion with Cameron later in the show, are on the rise. But in Adelaide, still, they're quite moderate. Confusing stats. We'll cover that off a bit later, but a really good story. But for now, let's introduce a really good mate of mine. He's a financial planner, and in fact, the name of the business is Plan 4 in Hutt Street, and he's the MD, and it's Philip Ely. Welcome, Philip.
Thanks, Anthony. I must say, having ridden 9,000 Ks with you in America in the last 6 weeks or so, without a scratch, I'm a bit surprised to see what's on your head at the moment. So.
Mate, it hurts, I can tell you. But that's just one of the things. 9 stitches. Yeah. Anyway, as we said, good friends. We've talked a lot over the last month when we were riding motorbikes across the states. We were watching the markets over there when we were touring. You've come back to Australia, as I have. We're back in the suits. And look what's happened. It's a really interesting landscape. What I have noticed most of all, and why I wanted you to talk to us today, is that there seem to be a lot of people in financial stress. Now, that hasn't eventuated in mortgagee sales or anything yet, but it's at the start of the process. Tell me about how a financial planner works, and are you of any value at all to someone that's finding the finances a bit difficult at the moment?
Yeah, well, with rising interest rates, I think what tends to happen is the first thing that goes is discretionary spending. So that then people pull in the horns a little bit. They don't spend as much on restaurants, therefore small businesses get affected. Their lives are secured against property, and so there's a lot of pressure out there in the marketplace. So for people who are, suffering and finding it hard, it's really important to make sure that you do a budget and get some professional advice. So in the event that people are finding themselves in difficulty, I think they need to seek the help of a financial planner or an accountant to firstly understand what their current circumstances are, get a feel for that, and then if there's any other ways of them getting free service through the financial information service with Centrelink or some of the My Budget people who help put a budget together, that's the first place to go.
Okay, so you're in a situation, you don't have an accountant, you don't have a financial planner, you don't know anyone at My Budget. How would they determine who's the best one to call?
Well, I think the first thing is really to have a discussion with somebody who has those contacts. So a financial planner, a certified financial planner preferably, who've got the qualifications. Pay for an hour of advice, understand where you are, and then they can direct you to the right people to go to for additional services if they need it.
Okay, so let me just even drill down a little bit further.
Sure.
So I'm struggling with a mortgage payment. I can see there's problems brewing because maybe the bank's rung or something, or first home buyers are the ones we're seeing a bit of, where they've really got out of depth, partners left or something, things have changed, you know, they should never probably bought the property. They won't have a lot of spare money, no. But what you're suggesting is to ring, say, a financial planner, so yourself,
yep.
How much would you charge them and how much value would they get in their first interview?
Well, typically we have an hour interview. We charge $350 for that. That includes minutes, bullet points of action points that they need to work on from there. And we can supply, you know, budget planners to help them understand what their circumstances are. The trouble is a lot of people get into difficulty because they don't have a handle on where it's all going. They've got fixed expenses and variable expenses, and they need to know what they are. And once they understand that, they can then make adjustments to their spending pattern to help them with increasing mortgage payments.
So is it possible that someone's under that much pressure that you could actually help them reorganise their priorities or divest of things? I mean, the obvious move is maybe to sell a house, if we're talking a property example, but have you ever seen examples where they don't end up having to sell a house? Maybe you restructured something or...
Yeah, well, it may be, you look at the sorts of debts they've got, can they consolidate their debt, reduce their monthly outgoings, direct that money to more appropriate areas to free up some cash flow. So it's only really when you pull it apart and understand what their individual circumstances are and help them get a handle on that, that they can then, you know, take some appropriate action going forward. But sometimes, yeah, I mean, it depends on the level of debt and the dire of the circumstances. So.
Now, just moving to a different subject altogether, today's news, 25 billion wiped out of the stock market last night or yesterday. Now, from my point of view, go property, because everyone's whinging about slight drops in property prices and then you have that happen. You're in both camps. What are your thoughts on that kind of, like 45 billion in the last 2 days lost out of the stock market, and property, everyone's whinging about, you know, as I said, these small amounts. Where do you sit on that? Just a snapshot.
Well, property only looks better because it's not valued on a daily basis like shares are. So, I mean, the issue of wiping out on the stock market is only really for those people who want to sell out today. So, you know, you and I have been in business for the same period of time, 26 years. We've seen a lot of ups and downs over that period of time. And it's only in a distressed sale that those figures have some reality to them.
Okay. Phil will be back with more questions in a minute. In the meantime, it's Going, Going, Gone, the new segment.
Looking back at TOOP+TOOP's property sales for the week, it shows potential buyers shouldn't hesitate putting an offer in on their dream home. This charming 1920 stone home sold the week before it was meant to go to auction for $766,000. Wise investors are taking advantage of the buyer's market, where one smart purchaser snapped up this fantastic opportunity in St. Peter's for $725,000. Other notable sales for the week include two fantastic family homes. Peter Freed sold this Enfield property for $615,000 and Wayne Land's Valley View residence was purchased for $320,000.
I have an absolute theory on the market at the moment. I actually think it's becoming very stable, and it's quite exciting to see the world news about what's happening all over the globe and to look at the stats and what's happening in our Adelaide market. And I think that it's very stable at the moment and the sales are happening. People are getting used to the new regime. So we'll have more on that later in the show. But in the meantime, let's go behind the blinds.